Apparently, it goes live right after I hit the button, so I'm gonna assume that I'm live. Hello, good afternoon, happy Friday. It is just me today. Um, so I, I, my voice was kind of going out earlier, so I don't know how long I'm gonna do today, but I'll try to do something. We're having our. Yesterday we watched Black Swan, the Darren Aronofsky movie, and we started discussing it a little bit. It was very enriching and complex and deep discussion started to come out of it. So tonight is our weekly Zoom for gifted, twice exceptional, neurodivergent, intelligent misfits, and we'll probably continue the discussion on Black Swan. I may even give some of my thoughts on it here because it started sparking a lot, even with me, involving. Well, let me make my announcement first. Tonight's the Zoom, 7 p.m. If you want to join, come and just contact me for the link. Primalhex, PRIMALAMLHEX at gmail.com or on Twitter. The name is in my YouTube channel. And you can come and chat and hang out with us and talk about Black Swans and whatever else you want to. So it brought up a lot of stuff for me initially, and this is a whole topic in itself. In fact, I may have some couple of guests on Sunday to help me talk about it. But it brought up women and kind of how they treat each other and the pressures they put on each other, and they're not. They talk about toxic masculinity, which I don't believe in, but they are not innocent of. Some of that's projection. In fact, I think a lot of it's projection, because watching how they treat each other in this movie, that's one of the things it sparked for me. And the wokeness that I hate so much, to me, is similar to that female pressure that they put on each other to conform. And it's all these invisible, unspoken rules they're reacting to. Anyway, that's probably a bad topic to get started on today. But that's what initially sparked with me. And then when they focused more on her and her own personal internal journey, it brought up mythology. There was a lot of Freudian / Jungian stuff going on there that I could identify, kind of with her shadow, her light and dark side. And I saw some of Dabrowski and Positive Disintegration. It was also a very satanic movie for me, in the sense that the Lily character was the Satan figure that kind of corrupted her into liberation of her freedom and liberation of her more authentic self. And you had some positive disintegration in the sense that her established persona, like that she developed under her mother, did kind of start to break apart a bit and allow other aspects of herself to emerge, like the myth is a story that we kind of internalize and live our lives around, and it can also represent the lives that we're currently living. So there's a kind of a dialectic interplay between ourselves, who we are, and also the stories that we internalize from the outside. And the dominating or guiding myth of the movie was, of course, the Swan Lake story, the Black Swan, White Swan story. And that's also the myth that she began to internalize and lived out, because it was, we presume, because it was most accurately reflecting her development at the point that she was in the movie. But liberating the Black Swan aspect of herself, that's what I call cyclical. It's a cyclical myth. Its contraries or opposites, antitheses, and one emerges. You identify with one, and then the contrary begins to emerge through a disintegrative process, like we saw in the movie, the harrowing of hell that she started to go through as she entered psychosis. And you had the satanic figure kind of tempting her into that opposite, allowing it to emerge. but it is not what I would call necessarily growth or vertical development. You see this with male and female too. The goal is integration, the opposite emerges, and you integrate the two into something higher. In this movie, it just alternated, or between the white and black swan, or kind of coexisted side by side, but it didn't drive any kind of vertical development where she began to transcend the two opposites and develop into something higher that was actually more her true authentic self. So I did see some Dabrowski, but not on the vertical axis where you begin to move up the levels. It was just this horizontal axis of this cyclical interplay of opposites. So those are some of the things that the movie sparked for me, and that it was a very satanic movie actually, but it didn't have the it was like a kind of like a failed Satanism where it did awaken the shadow part of her, or the contrary opposite, but it didn't integrate it in a healthy way. I liked Lily. I think she was my favorite character, the real Lily, because oh yeah, another thing I noticed about it is, I won't get too much into this today, but there's the concept of the imago, but it's how much of what drives and motivates us internally starts externally and is internalized from the outside, and then kind of gets distorted or starts to pull apart from the external facts and or data that we're internalizing, and kind of interacts with our own subjectivity to create that kind of middle ground between who we are and what we take in from the outside, other people, mostly in this movie, Lily and some of the other characters. In psychology, there's the concept, or Jungian psychology, there's the concept of the imago, and it's kind of a placeholder in us for potential. Like we growing up, they say we have a mother imago, a father imago, and that's the potential, or the space that's cleared for us in our psyche for that attaches to an actual mother figure in real life, usually our biological parents, or whoever we grew up around, adoptive perhaps. And so your concept of mother becomes a combination of this internal mother archetype that starts to interact and take on the form of your actual mother. And that kind of happened. We saw it happen with Lily, where Lily was the catalyst, or the stimulus that her imago of her shadow self started to form around, but it got subjectivized at some point in the movie very early during her, and you could see it more in her psychosis, where it became like this subjective Lily that didn't actually represent Lily as she is in the external world, but more of how Lily reflected into Natalie Portman's character, Nina, her name was, in that shadow imago that Lily was representing in her psyche. So it had me thinking about how so much of our psyche is developed in its interaction with the external social world, with interpersonally with other people, intersubjectively, and then but kind of gets, you stick a stick in the water and what refracted or something, and the part that's underwater kind of gets bent and distorted by our whatever subjective aspects of ourselves are projecting onto and introjecting these external people or forms, and what they represent for us in our psyche. So that came up for me too, and that's all tied into myth and mythology. So I'm still working that out and thinking that through in my head. So we'll probably touch on some of that tonight in a Zoom. So if you want to come and talk about this kind of stuff and hang out with us, I guess is the whole point of this ramble. Um, because I am doing, hang on. I don't know if it's showing up on the, or I guess it wouldn't be showing up. What's the audio version of showing? I don't know if it's appearing in, even that's visual. I don't know if it's registering on the video, but my voice feels like it's really strained right now, and like my vocal cords are weak or something. I don't know if it's a cold coming on or I just been doing too much talking. But today, because it is a support group, among other things, it's also a discussion group, but groups in general, I thought I would talk a little bit about support groups and how I run them. Like the support groups, I've run many support groups as part of my peer work. I've run trauma groups. I've run support groups for autistic people and neurodivergent people. How I do my own groups and some general principles I found helpful in running groups. I've talked about community building, and the group is kind of a element, or can be an element of community. So I'm going to kind of home in on just the group aspect of community and just give some of my thoughts and principles. I do the kind of groups that I need for myself. So all of the principles that I use in creating and facilitating a group are drawn from my experience with attending other groups and what's worked and hasn't worked for me personally and what I need from a group. So I'm just going to freestyle it a little bit. I have some notes in front of me, but some of the key ingredients that I think make a good support group, let's just say that'll be the topic. Common goals, like hopefully you're all there. Now we talked about the concept of third place, and I went over that one day, and you could pull it up on Wikipedia. So support groups are a little bit different. Mine personally are still kind of third placey, but if we're meeting for a specific reason, then it kind of moves it out of the third place dynamic into something more targeted or goal directed. So having a common goal or a reason the group's meeting in the first place is, I'd say, one of the defining principles. Like, for example, my men's group meets to talk about men's mental health and men's issues. The group tonight meets to bring together gifted, twice exceptional, neurodivergent people so that we can talk and connect and kind of reflect each other and help each other develop through that reflection. So kind of being aware of what the goal is, what the purpose of the group is. And usually those purposes are based around similar values or belief systems. There's the concept of, especially in my groups, and there's the concept of autonomy, individuality. Everybody is free to show up as their authentic self. So it's how to organize a group where the incentive for social conformity is low and the ability to maintain your autonomy and individuality is still respected. So there's the concept of independence, which I just described, and interdependence. And so it's not, I hardly make rules for my group. Every now and then, very rarely, I might have to make one kind of rule. But like, for example, in one of our groups, when it gets too many people, like let's say 10 people on the Zoom, and the conversation, everybody's competing for space and the mic and oxygen, we have kind of it's more of a community agreement than a rule that people can use the raise hand function or just raise their hand visually, and they'll be prioritized and given a chance to kind of cut in and speak when they need to. So just things like that. It's not, again, not a rule, just kind of a agreement that developed is if the Zooms get too large, we'll do breakout rooms. We'll start breaking them up into smaller groups so that everybody does have a chance to speak. I found 7 to 8 probably is a comfortable, and then that's if you don't have a lot of talkers where they all want to talk and get their word in. 8 combination of talkers and listeners makes for a nice Zoom. 10 is manageable. Above 10, I would start doing breakout groups and breaking that into small. Do 2 groups of 5. If you have really passionate, intense talkers that you 3 or 4 of them are going to be driving the conversation, then I find groups of maybe 4 or 5 to be ideal, depending on the volubility of the people in the group. And I don't see talkativeness and volubility as a bad thing. It just the people that do want that or have that need just need a place where they're able to express that. And it's all about, in our groups at least, it's all about being able to show up as your authentic self, and not in the social justice way that you hear, the rhetoric, but actually show up as your authentic self. You don't have to mask. You can be yourself. You can say what's on your mind. I can't say people are not going to judge you. They might judge you, but that's part of the process. You could talk it out, work it out. They'll have whatever reaction they have, and then you can build from there. Which I guess brings me to the second principle or value that groups can be formed around. Well, let me before we move to that, we're gonna the common goal thing can motivate the people in the group. When you have several people, especially gifted people, working toward the same goal, that can motivate and inspire each person in the group. It has that synergistic feedback effect that I talked about before to help drive the accomplishment of the goal even more than maybe it would if in each individual were left to do it on their own. So it has this larger community effect. So if it's all directed on one common goal, you get the benefit of that increased kind of momentum. The second principle, and again for me in my groups, is freedom of expression. I have to be somewhere where I can say what's on my mind, and it's not going to be constrained. Low protocol, low etiquette. My groups are not that formal. In fact, one of them is called the back porch because it's like hanging out on the back porch, just chatting. People have to be comfortable speaking and expressing the things that are important to them. And so I deliberately kind of create a kind of space where people can do that. I don't want people to feel like there's that much of a risk in sharing something that might be close to them or important to them or controversial. I want them to feel like they can say whatever's on their mind and get it out there in the public square, and then we can all talk about it or react to it. If they're encouraged to give their input about an issue and they feel heard, they're more likely to feel connected to their community or to the community or group that you're trying to build. It's fine to have heterodox opinions that are diverge from the majority, minority opinions. Nonconformity is encouraged. I believe that everybody has something to offer. And here's my thing with conformity and freedom of expression. I like knowing people as they really are. So I want to hear all the things that they're holding back or maybe change or modify or masking, as I like to call it, when they're around people who there's a higher premium on conformity for. I want to know if if you think something negative about people, or if I want to know what you really think. I want to know who you really are. If you don't like a particular subject we're talking about, I want to hear all the things you don't like about it. I don't want you to have to change who you are or hide who you are just because you feel like you have to fit into a particular group. So I basically want to see someone's authentic self, and the more people are free to express that authentic self, the more that authentic self is able to emerge and develop. And eventually you reach the point where you could consciously direct that development. So I'm really big on freedom of expression, free speech. If anybody who knows me knows that is like my number one value that I do not like. And that's one of the things that brought me to Satanism. In fact, they had tenets around free speech and offense and freedom to offend and that kind of stuff. I don't care if what I say offends you. You keep your big girl, boy pants on, manage your own reactions. I do the same thing when I get offended. That's me. That's my shit. You don't have to change what you're saying or what you're talking about just because I might get offended by it. That's not the mature psychological adult thing to do. I think it's important for groups to address the members' concerns, and I do try to whenever they bring them up, which again is rare because the groups they're kind of so free and open that either they'll bring a concern to me personally outside the group, or they'll just emerge as part of the group, and then we'll just address them as a community and move on. Positive communities prioritize their members' well-being and address their concerns in a timely manner. So there's several ways to do that. There's peer support, mediation. We have breakout rooms. Anybody can go to a breakout room anytime they want to talk if they're having a conflict or want to talk about something, just between two of them or three or four of them, however many members are involved. So that's always an option. People are free to turn their camera off, their mic, whatever they need to feel comfortable about being there. But I encourage everybody to self-accommodate and self-manage their needs. There shouldn't, again, internal locus of control. There shouldn't be anything I need to do much as a host. I think Zoom lets you even turn on closed captions now if you need them, or Zoom has all kind of features you can use to manage your experience on Zoom. So anything goes as far as that. Just take charge of your own needs and meeting those needs as much as you can. And if there is something you need help with or that I can help with, let me know. Okay, so we talked about similar beliefs and values and how that kind of helps to hold a community together. It also helps to manage disagreement because you can keep referring to the values that the community is, or the group is built around, to kind of prioritize which values take precedence for a particular conflict. Because conflict, and I talked about this in an episode, conflict is usually a clash of values. It's very deeply held values of yours that's clashing with the very deeply held values of somebody else. And so kind of having those community values to reference helps determine, when you're trying to resolve the conflict, which values should take priority or precedence. In liberal societies, which is what I consider my groups and communities part of, it's done through dialogue and conversation. I guess that's all I have to say about that. Something that shows up in some groups and communities, and I try to keep mine to a very minimum, although I don't think they're completely unavoidable, is power differentials. In my groups, everyone's pretty much equal, including myself. I don't see any, there's no leaders, there's no, there might be facilitators or moderators, and although I don't have any mods in my Discord, because I'm of the belief, and my experience has pretty much borne this out, that healthy, psychologically mature, autonomous adults do not need other people telling them what to do. They can be trusted to behave pro-socially and in line with what's good. Like, they're as invested in the success of a community or group as anybody else, and I can trust them to behave in a manner that reflects that and is in accord with that. So I don't even, it never even crosses my mind that I need to tell people what to do or have a bunch of rules. So that cuts down on power differentials just right there. Some of power differential is subjective. Like, some people in the group may feel like other people in the group have more power and status than they do, but I don't necessarily, like, I see everybody the same. I'm Cajun. We don't have a strong sense of authority in our culture. So we all put our pants on, we all put our drawers on one day at a time, as the saying goes. And I mean, one leg at a time. And that's true for everybody. And so in my mind, we're all equal. We're all there for more or less the same reasons. to meet more or less the same needs. My needs don't take any more precedence over yours or anybody else's, and vice versa. So I try to keep the seesaw balanced instead of having one or more people appear. And when I say appear, I mean nobody has more of a voice or authority than any other person in the community or group. Anybody's welcome to use their voice, and anybody's welcome to assert their self-authority, their self-determination to meet their own needs. Now, you can't assert authority over another person any more than I would let somebody else assert authority over you in a group. I'll assert minimal authority when I need to keep the group going or to facilitate the group, like forming breakout rooms or encouraging someone to take a private conversation to a breakout room. Every now and then I'll let people know that, like, sometimes one person's trying to talk and you have the people that keep talking over them and just can't get in audience mode and give the person whose hands raised the floor. I'll let everyone know that I'll use the mute button to give the person their platform and chance to speak if I need to, which is very, very rare. And that's kind of just conversation management more than authority or rules. Really, this is the key. And I think I did an episode on this about the interpersonal, like on friendship and mentorship, the interpersonal connections. That is the building block of the group and the community. So keeping those people come to the group, in my groups at least, one of the values and goals that they come for is to connect. And in the sense of the online virtual communities that I'm talking about, it's to connect through conversation. That's our primary mode of connection in that setting. So having the ability to have the conversations that foster and drive that kind of connection, and then you build those connections, lead to stronger and stronger relationships between members of the group. And that is what drives most of my groups and communities, is the relationships that are built on them. They're egalitarian. They're very fluid. There's not a lot of power differential. Leadership, if it's needed at all, can fluctuate based on the needs of the moment. I do not. In fact, I got in a fight in this on one Zoom, or more than one actually. I don't see myself as the leader. I see this as a collaborative, co-creative effort. And so if you have an idea or something that comes up, I don't want to be the one making all the decisions and calling all the shots. Bring it up to the group, see what the group thinks. If there's something you want to do, run with it. If you want a particular Zoom or topic or whatever, I will help you set it up if you need help. You can use the Zoom account to do it. But if you want to host a particular like movie night or like a game night or any particular activity or event or a workshop that you have an idea for, do it. Take charge, take ownership, and do it. And I will support you, help you execute it however I can. I can help with the tech and the infrastructure part. I'll promote it for you. I am not the leader. I don't rely on me to you don't need my approval. Don't rely on me to make the decisions or give permission. I want to support autonomy and self-determination. And if you have an idea for the community, run with it. I encourage everybody in the groups to contribute whatever their creativity inspires them to. This next one talks about heritage and traditions that forms over time. Like your groups may have certain, kind of in board gaming, like house rules, certain traditions that emerge. You'll probably know them when you see them, and they change over time. This one's not that important to talk about today, I don't think. But like if your community's around for years and years, you can look back and see how it's developed from the start and all the little traditions that have arisen. Because each group and community is going to create its own unique culture. And even within, I do several groups and communities, or I have over the last few years since COVID. And each one of those, even though I'm the one helping to create them, develops its own culture depending on who's involved in them. So I could have a men's group, and the culture is a little different than the gifted group, which is a little different from the artist and open mic group. So I guess just keep that in mind. Interaction among members and how to promote. That is the heart of community building for me. If you're going to bring people together, it's nice to have that third place where the spontaneous interaction can happen. But also, if you're going to bring people together, give them something to do. People connect over activities, they connect over problem solving, they connect over common whatever they can engage in communally. And so give them interaction opportunities, discussions, Zooms. You could do in-person groups and chapters that spin off. I would love a network that has a virtual hub, and then there are local, like all the local members in an area get together outside of that in person. We have several of us here on the West Coast that are thinking about doing a little mini reunion soon where we're all going to meet up in person. And so I love when the virtual spills over, and I love when people bring their real life connections into the virtual so that it becomes this hybrid network of virtual versus, or not versus, hybrid and, virtual and in person. Presentations, workshops, game nights, movie nights. Discord has the voice and video feature that anybody can use if you set it up to be that way. And so the members themselves can just start to spontaneously voice and video chat whenever they want. We used to do the morning coffee for the back porch. I've talked about not the current back porch, but the original back porch. I've talked about how those morning coffees were the keystone that the whole entire 24-hour Zoom developed around. Open mic nights, classes. If people have something that they're good at that they want to teach to others, do it. You can use my Zoom. Enabling opportunities for members to experience social goodwill and confluence is in their interactions is key. Confluence is when like two rivers come together and the water flows into each other. When people come together and they start to build that larger sense of what do I want to call it? Interdependence. I don't like that word. I like that word. I don't like that word in this particular. That's not what I'm looking for in this case. But that larger whatever that starts to spill over and everybody gets fed from. Organizers and facilitators. I talked about that little core, like developing that little core that keeps group and communities going. You want the organizers and facilitators to be the ones that reflect those community values and are aligned with them and kind of have them internalized on a very deep level so they're able to intuitively operate from those values. They should be fair. The community's values should inform any decisions or actions taken on behalf of the community, stuff like that. And whatever decisions that they do make or have to make or end up making should focus primarily on promoting the community's visions and aims and goals. Effective communication, that's also essential. I said that the primary activity for connecting and forming those interpersonal bonds in our groups, at least the virtual ones, is conversation and communication. So communication, healthy communication, effective communication. I don't always feel like I'm the most effective communicator. That's something I struggle with the neurodivergence. I was in speech therapy growing up, so I've been told before several times of like my communication difficulties, they call it, or challenges. So I don't always know that my communication is the most effective, but it seems to work in some groups, and I try to make it as effective as I can. That effective communication is essential for a group, a community. It means clearly communicating who you are, your values, your beliefs, but also communicating with the members effectively and keeping them informed about the detail, like when are the meetings? What are the expectations for this meeting? What's the topic? If it's a discussion, is it just a third place type? Is there going to be an activity? Keeping web pages updated, social media. I feel like my Twitter account lately, I hardly ever use it for dialogue anymore. It's mostly me promoting the events and the live streams. And I wonder if it's one reason is there's just not a lot happening on Twitter now. There's not as many Twitter debates and discussions to jump into, it seems like, at least on my feed. But the other thing is I'm so busy doing all this other stuff, I don't really have time to spend on Twitter like I used to. And so it's kind of morphing into a communication hub for my other projects than it is from to a conversation medium. Web pages, calendars, flyers. You can make digital flyers nowadays. You could do a newsletter. I had some of my groups. We have a community calendar where all the members have the link to it, and we put the events, and members can put up events however they want. We did that with the Zoomerang during COVID because we had so many things going on, and there was a calendar people could pull up and see what's happening on any individual day. So there's technology to organize that kind of communication, the more logistic and practical kind. Talked about the third place before. One of the values that we built our community around, all of mine is built around this value really, but we built a particular decentralized autonomous community, a DAO, or a DOC, I guess, around the value of self-determination, having all of the individuals in it be autonomous, self-determining people. And how do you integrate that into a community that doesn't compromise that autonomy or self-determination? So some of what I'm talking about came out of my experiences with that. But all my groups, even before that, were kind of based on giving people as much creative freedom as they needed to actualize their vision for the community. When I was a meetup organizer, I had one of my groups was the big outdoors group in New Orleans. And anytime somebody had an idea for the group, they usually ended up becoming an organizer. And we had a guy that was really into biking and cycling, and he organized all kind of cycling events for the cyclers. We had somebody that was really into canoeing that organized a bunch of canoe trips for the group. I was like into camping and hiking. So whatever someone's niche was, if they became an organizer, they could, and they weren't limited to that niche, but that was kind of their strength or the wheelhouse that they worked out of best. I had this whole network of organizers that were constantly organizing the events they were passionate about, and the calendar filled up. Like every day you could pull up and there'd be 5 or 6, sometimes on weekends 7 or 8 events to go to, because all the different organizers were just spinning off these events, and it worked really well. I like that system a lot. I would love to have another network of those kind of organizers that could generate continuous, constant events and opportunities for connection. Personal sovereignty, heterodox, all opinions are welcome, political opinions, religious opinions. Believe it or not, in some of my groups, because y'all know how anti-woke I am, we have people that are woke or woke adjacent or woke sympathetic. And in the Zooms that I host, we somehow all make it work. Everybody's welcome to have their particular opinion or point of view. We can talk about it if we need to. Learning from each other, helping build those values together, networking. That's all that I have on my notes. Let me think if there's anything else I want to say about community. By the way, I'm back on the jigsaw puzzle, so I'm going to be working on that as we talk. Yeah, I can show it to y'all. I'm making some Fruit Loops. How appropriate. Because one thing I do is I start the puzzles and I forget to save them. And so I have to keep starting new ones. So I remembered to save this one. And I have to, and this one's challenging because it's lots of little different colored rings. There's not broad areas of one color to work on. Um, so I'm really enjoying this one. So if you come to one of my groups, you will several things will probably happen. You will probably have fun. You will probably meet people that are really cool to talk to. You will probably have conversations that you don't get to have off. I hear that all the time about I can have conversations here that I hardly get to have in real life or in person or in other groups. You will probably be challenged um, intellectually, politically, cognitively, and also emotionally. You will learn to meet and work around different types of people that come from all different backgrounds. Um, you'll probably develop friendships and those connections that I try so hard to help people make. You probably learn some stuff. I learned a lot from the people in my groups. Um, you can network. Uh, like again, that's kind of making the connections, but for specific purposes. You might meet people near you that you can start interacting with in person. I think one thing you're gonna find at the groups, or that I find quite frequently, is respect. You'll find people that respect you for who you are and appreciate you for who you are, that you don't have to change or mask to fit in with. Um, so I think authenticity, you'll find a sense of authenticity there. And maybe your own authenticity will start to emerge. Healthiness, mental health, like mentally healthy. People that understand trauma and mental health, and you'll have support for that. You don't have to hide your mental health struggles. You don't have to hide your past struggles. We get it. We understand adversity. Um, there's support for that. Understanding, you'll probably get. I find people in my groups that can understand and relate to me in ways that ordinary people, like in my day-to-day life, would little want to have. And even places like Twitter sometimes don't. I feel less of a misfit, less of an oddball. I feel like I can actually accomplish things and could make positive contributions. So you might find a sense of that too, like an ability to contribute and make a difference. So plus we're fun. Oh, that's one thing you're definitely gonna find. I think we're a lot of fun. I don't do things that are not fun. I'm Cajun. We have to play as much as we work. So if the fun is not there, if I'm not enjoying myself, I normally don't last very long in a group. So if I'm keeping a group going, you can almost guarantee that it's because there's some kind of fun happening there too. Funtelligent, we used to call one of our groups, or describe ourselves that way. Find a lot of funtelligent people. What else might you find or come to expect? You're also gonna find whatever you bring to it and help create as well. So it's not a passive experience. It's more like Burning Man, where everyone's a participant. You can be a spectator if you want, but most people find that they get a lot out of participating and contributing. So you'll find opportunities to kind of explore and actualize your own ideas for community or projects, whatever. It's just fun. Like I said, it's oh, I'm gonna get out of this. It's a back porch environment where kind of anything goes and whatever can happen. So it's a lot of creativity. You'll find a lot of opportunities for creativity, and excitability and passion, that kind of stuff. So I guess I might end a little early today. I feel like I've said enough, and my voice thing is still there. And tomorrow, let me tell you what's happening tomorrow. I think it's at 4 p.m. Central. I got to double check the times because we're dealing with international time zones. I'm speaking with Garlock from, I think he's in Ireland, and he's a Twitter person that I follow for a while. We're going to be talking about men's mental health. I've been wanting to do at least one topic on men's mental health this month, and I finally have someone to come on and talk about men's mental health. And then on Sunday, if I can arrange it and the times work out, I'm going to have Sarah, who was on yesterday, and Cheryl, who was on last weekend, to come and talk about specifically about gifted women and their needs, because we're planning this network where we it's going to be kind of a hub that serves the different subtypes of giftedness. I'm going to serve the gifted men. We have people working to develop something to meet the needs of gifted women. We have gifted youth, the types of gifted, like highly gifted, Hep G they call it, highly exceptional, profoundly gifted. You have the HSP, highly sensitive person, the twice exceptional neurodivergent, which I also am able to help with, at least on the male side. So this is going to be gender weekend, I guess, because we're going to be talking about men tomorrow and their needs, their mental health needs. And then Sunday, we'll probably be talking about women and their mental health needs, as at least as far as gifted women go. So that's what's lined up this weekend. Oh, also, I guess I can announce there's another little event I run every Sunday at noon Central Time, 10 a.m. my time. We get together and we watch RuPaul's Drag Race, the latest season, and we have the All Stars that's just starting. It's going to be the first episode of the new All Stars this Sunday. You could probably look up the trailer on YouTube. And so anyone's welcome to drop by for that too. You can email me for the link. Primalhex, PRIMALHEX @gmail.com or Twitter. So that's what's coming up this weekend. And if you're a gamer, I have one gaming group going right now, but I'm interested in starting a few more gaming groups. I love collaborative storytelling. I'm also I guess I shouldn't show them on YouTube, but I have my first edition Dungeon Dragon book sitting right here. I'm a big D&D nerd, so if you like to role play or board game, there's possibilities of getting other gaming groups going. So contact me for that too, and any other ideas you have. Okay, I guess that's it. I'm just filling up my live stream slot today, really. So I'm gonna go. I'm off to the Gifted Twice Exceptional Zoom for Black Swan and other conversation. We'll probably get into depth psychology and mythology too. And I will see you there or not. I'll see you tomorrow for Garlock, Men's Mental Health. Talk to you then.